Millions of people watch the coronation of King Charles. Learn why so many are naturally drawn to the British royal family. Understand the significance of a song played at each British coronation and discover how this song proves where the very throne of Jesus Christ is today. Next, on The Key of David with Gerald Flurry.
Greetings, everyone. 20 million people watched the coronation of King Charles III. And the king was handed a Bible, and they said that you receive this book. It's the most valuable thing that this world affords. This is the best gift of all. But how many people really believe that, and how many people of those 20 million really do believe it and live by it? Which is, of course, the only way it will be of value to you. But if you know the Bible and Bible prophecy, you'll know why they have sung Zadok the priest on this special coronation day. That takes you way back to the time of Solomon. And the chief priest then was Zadok the priest. And how did he become the priest? Well, there's quite a history there. But G.F. Handel's Zadok the priest is sung, and it's a powerful song. And why? Why is it sung? Why do they sing it on this coronation day? When Queen Elizabeth II was crowned Queen of the British Commonwealth in 1953, the Chronicle Telegram of Elyria, Ohio explained, "The choir sings as they have sung at this point in the ceremony since the earliest known English coronation service." Much earlier than that. That's kind of vague. But it goes on to say the anthem, Zadok the priest. This is a song about Zadok the priest, and it's sung every time a queen has been crowned or a king since the earliest known English coronation service. Again, you see, it goes back much further than that. And yet, they don't really know, in most cases, why they're even singing that, or at least a lot of them. Many religious individuals don't understand why this is done and what it all means. If you understand prophetic Israel, it's America and Britain and the Commonwealth, along with the nation called Israel today, that is really biblical Judah. So let's look at Luke 1 and verse 30. Luke 1 and verse 30. "And the angel said unto her, Fear not, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And behold, you shall conceive in your womb, and bring forth a son, and shall call his name Jesus. And he shall be great, and shall be called the Son of the Highest. And the eternal God shall give unto him the throne of his father David." Well, what do you know? Here, God the Father gives this throne to Jesus Christ. Now, so it's a father and a son, and that throne is on this earth. It is on this earth today, and Christ is the head of God's church, and when he returns, he's going to sit on that throne. There's going to have to be a throne here for him when he returns. It's on this earth. Now, Jesus Christ is going to rule on that throne forever, Isaiah 9 and verse 7. So we need to know where that throne is and what it's all about. Verse 33 says, "And he shall reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there shall be no end." And he's doing that on the throne of David, which is actually Christ's own throne. It's his throne. You can look at Jeremiah 33, verses 17 through 21, where God said there would never lack a man to be sitting on that throne, a man or a woman. Never. And he says, now if you can break my covenant with night and day, and if we no longer have night and day, then okay, you can break this promise. But if you can walk outside and look around at night and day, well, if it's still there, you know that God has a man sitting on David's throne in this end time. You know that, according to this promise. And this is an end time book that makes that promise, the book of Jeremiah. So I want to talk to you today about a song that proves where David's throne is. A song that proves where David's throne is. Zadok the priest. Now, where did they get that song? And this, if you know this history, it will point you to the very throne of God. In 1 Kings 1 and verse 38 through 40, it tells you about this song. And it's in 1 Kings. Kings happens to be one of the former prophets, which means it's prophecy primarily for this end time. And this is where it tells you about this song and how it developed from Zadok the priest. Let's take a look at that. They say in this documentary that I saw that it's a ceremony so old, history scarcely can go back enough to contain it. Long time ago, way back to Solomon and even David. Notice verse 38 and 1 Kings 1. So Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet and Benaiah the son of Jehoiada and the Cherethites and the Pelethites went down and caused Solomon to ride upon King David's mule and brought him to Gihon, or the Gihon spring. And Zadok the priest took an horn of oil out of the tabernacle and anointed Solomon. And they blew the trumpet, and all the people said, "God save King Solomon." And all the people came up after him, and the people piped with pipes and rejoiced with great joy, so that the earth rent with the sound of them. Now at the same time, you can go ahead and read the other verses here. Like verse 41 talks about Adonijah, the son of David, and he was in the process of taking over the throne himself at that very time. And so he got news of what was happening there in Jerusalem and all this rejoicing, and David was actually crowning Solomon to be the king of Israel. Now, that's quite a period in this history. But there was actually a war going on over that throne. And Satan is always trying to destroy that throne. And whoever believes in it has to fight for that teaching and that instruction, because Satan is always trying to blot it out. And that is the history of that throne. And God tells us that in many places. If you look at Queen Elizabeth II, she was crowned on David's throne in 1953, and we prove that in our book, The United States and Britain in Prophecy. But here is a shocking statement. The queen ceased to be on David's throne. She was on David's throne, but she ceased to be on David's throne in 2017. Now, I know that's a stunning statement, but you can prove it from your own Bible. And this is, I believe, one of the greatest events on this earth from the time of Christ down to this present time, because it focuses on this end time and where David's throne is going to appear. Now, if you look at the time of Christ, at that time he prepared everything and made it ready for the first era of God's church, and then there was a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth, and now a seventh and last era of God's church. So, and this last era, God says, is going to have the throne of David. It's going to have the throne of David, God's own church, and that's the first time it's ever happened in this history of man. So that makes it quite a vital understanding. The only church era, and this is a sign, you see, that God is preparing for the second coming. He's putting this throne in God's own church so they can prepare for the beginning of a new rule on this earth. That's what it's all about. It is preparing for that wonderful world tomorrow in the last era of God's church. It's a giant step into the wonderful world tomorrow if you look at it prophetically and even in reality. The only church era to ever have that throne, and it is a giant step toward the rule of Jesus Christ on David's throne or his own throne in the world tomorrow and forever. Isaiah 9 and verse 7. If you really understand Handel's Zadok the priest, it's going to point you right to David's throne. If you really understand it and the history of it and the prophecy of it, you'll know where David's throne is, and you will know where a man is that sits on that throne. Now that reality has to be here before Jesus Christ comes to this earth. It has to be here, and it all happened in 2017, and it's fully explained in my book on the new throne of David. So there you'll fully see it fully explained, and there's also a new stone of destiny. And that stone of destiny is a symbol of Jesus Christ himself and also the throne of David. There must be a stone of destiny too. A throne that has that stone as a part of that throne, and then a man, of course, to sit on that throne. Now, if you understand the history of Zadok, you'll also believe in the former prophets. It's the former prophets that tell you about that singing and that powerful, powerful song by Handel. Unusually powerful. And that's a wonderful thing, and it's just really quite beautiful. But look, how many people today really believe in the Bible as being the greatest gift this world affords? How many people believe that? And how many people live and show you they believe it? Well, that's what God is talking about, really. And there was a time when that throne of David had a lot more people believing it than today. Far more. But you see again, you had Zadok the priest, who was the only priest who was loyal to David from the beginning to the end, even over into the era of Solomon himself when he was king. Nobody else did that. He was the last man standing, the last chief priest. That's why he was able to coronate Solomon onto the throne. He made all of that possible by doing the job of the priest. I want to read you something here from 1 Chronicles 12, where it talks about Zadok the priest and how loyal he was. And it says, in Zadok, a young man mighty of valor, well, this is 28, and his father's house 20 captains. So he was a military leader, a great military leader, one of the mighty men of David. Can you imagine a man like that becoming the chief priest? You don't find that kind of man becoming a chief priest today, do you? I would say you just don't see that I know of. Verse 38, all these men of war that could keep rank came with a perfect heart to Hebron to make David king over all Israel, and all the rest of Israel were of one heart to make David king. Now these are the leaders, including Zadok, and there was a reason why Zadok had to be such a powerful man, because they were fighting in a terrifying way physically at that time over David's throne. So you needed a real warrior for your chief priest. But God says even today, his people are soldiers. They fight for David's throne. They're loyal to David's throne because it's the very throne of Jesus Christ, and he's about to come to this earth and take that throne which belongs to him. Notice Ezekiel 44 and verse 7. Now you'll see this is all for the end time, and it's talking about God's own church turning away from that throne. Notice this in verse 7. In that you have brought into my sanctuary strangers, uncircumcised in heart and uncircumcised in flesh, to be in my sanctuary, to pollute it, even the house. And he's talking about God's own church. And a terrible thing is happening. Verse 10 says, and the Levites that are gone away far from me, when Israel went astray, which went astray away from me after their idols. They went away from God, and they shall even bear their iniquity. This is all happening, you see, that in this Laodicean era, last era of God's church. And verse 13 says, and they shall not come near unto me to do the office of a priest unto me. Their reward is being taken away. That's what he's talking about. And he says, but they shall bear their shame and the abominations which they have committed. Verse 13, 95% of God's people have turned away. And notice what God says in verse 15. But the priests, the Levites, the sons of Zadok, that kept the charge of my sanctuary, when the children of Israel went astray from me. So here are these sons of Zadok in this end time, sons of Zadok spiritually. They are here, and when all of God's church, 95% of it, are turning away, they are close to God and remain with David's throne, and the teaching of that throne, and even having that throne. Now, God says they're going to come close to me in the world tomorrow, and this is quite an amazing history, and it's about, of course, fighting and warring. And then Abiathar was the chief priest, and notice what happened in 1 Kings 1 and verse 8. But Zadok the priest, and Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and Nathan the prophet of Shimei, and Rei, and the mighty men which belonged to David were not with Adonijah. They didn't go with Adonijah, and that made Zadok the chief priest, because he was still loyal to David when everybody else, all of the other priests, had turned away. The chief priests. They were all turned away. And so here we have the chief priest right there with David's throne. And if you know your Bible, you know this has to be a lot more than a ritual. This is reality, and you have to fight and fight and fight for David's throne if you're going to keep it or even teach about it. You're going to have to really fight. Zadok remained faithful and has this tremendous reward ahead of him. And that's a great honor to be there at this time. As Melanie Phillips wrote, the choir in the Abbey will raise the roof with Handel's sublime Zadok the priest. Well, yes, she understands that, and she understands that even early English kings even believed they were descended from King David. Well, how about that? They certainly did believe that. They believed that throne of David was right there. And they coronated the kings and talked about that a lot more than they do today even. They've kept quite a lot of the ceremony, but they don't really believe it like they should. And Melody Phillips said, however, unease remains that he may not, that is, King Charles III may not properly promote and defend the values that are now under siege. See, there again, they're under siege, and the throne of David has been taken away from them because of that. They have to show how much they love that throne. So I'll go on down a little further. Over in Amos 9 and verse 11, it says this, "In that day I will raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen, and close up the breaches thereof." He will raise up the tabernacle of David. That includes the new throne of David in this end time. He's going to raise up the tabernacle of David. That is fallen. See, they've gotten away from teaching about David and his throne. And so God, later on, actually gives that little remnant that did remain loyal, gave them the throne of David and the stone of destiny. It's a new throne and a new stone. And it's all explained fully in my booklet on the new throne of David. And it is one of the most inspiring booklets that I've ever written because of the revelation that God has given me about that new throne and new stone. And it is spectacular. It is unbelievably spectacular, you might say. But notice, Amos goes on to say, "And I will raise up his ruins, and I will build it as in the days of old." See, there was a man by the name of Herbert W. Armstrong that always spoke about this throne of David and how it was on this earth. And God said there would always be a man to sit on that throne. And even the covenant of day and night. Well, only then, if you could break that, can you break that promise? That covenant of day and night is still here. That's what we have to keep in mind. And this is all happening before the great tribulation. That's a tabernacle of David. That means it's temporary. That means it's here on this earth today. It's temporary. But when Jesus Christ gets here, it's not going to be temporary. He's going to take it, and it's going to be there forever with His rule over it. And that is explained in Isaiah 9 and verse 7. So the sons of Zadok are going to receive this tremendous reward. The ceremony today talks about how they're dedicated to the service of the people. That is what King Charles III is now saying and what the Queen said. But God says, if you're on that throne of David, you should be looking to the whole world and serve them, because this is the throne that's going to bring all of this world together, and it's already being built from this world in the very last era of God's own true church. And we explain that fully in my booklet on the true history of the true church. But see, again, why do we sing this song, Zadok the priest? Why do we sing it? Well, it points us to David's throne, which is going to serve the entire world and bring them together and unify them under the rule of Jesus Christ and God the Father. That's the rule that's going to be here, and it's on its way right now. We need to be aware of it, and there's no just ritual going on here at all. It has to be a real effort, of serving God and serving this world with God's precious truth. Until next week, this is Gerald Flurry. Goodbye, friends.
All our literature is available free of charge at no cost or obligation to you. Request The New Throne of David, The Fighting Sons of Zadok, and The Hidden Danger in the Coronation. Order now. The preceding program was a paid presentation of The Key of David, brought to you by the Philadelphia Church of God.